and it let out this blood-curdling, guttural scream.
On the side of the road, he sees a deer carcass and something eating on it, which he thought was a bear. And as the lights hit it, it stood up. And, like, this gives me chills talking about it. He said it stood up and it had the face of a man.
Hello and welcome to the Bigfoots of America podcast show. I'm your host, Bryan Sawyer, coming at you. This is episode 31. All right, let's jump right into it. Episode 31. Our guest today is Jerry Lew Patterson. Now, I've had some conversations with this guy before. Let's give you a little bit of a background. Jerry is a working musician. He's a guitarist. He has played with such bands as Rare Earth. So he's good, man. He's got his act together, and I love that about him. He's also been involved in the Native American community for right around 40 years here in Michigan. And what's so neat about Jerry is his knowledge, his background, and something else to throw into his resume, which is so cool, is if you have a ghost in your house and it's not leaving, you pick up the phone, you call Jerry, and Jerry and his wife's coming over and they're going to get rid of that ghost for you. They're going to get rid of that haunting. They're going to get rid of those evil spirits. So, yeah, I'm so excited to have Jerry on today. We've had some great conversations and, well, let's go ahead and bring him in. Hey, Jerry, you there?
Right here. Can you see me, man?
Yeah, man, I got you. Gosh,
Hey.
yeah.
OCO. How you doing?
Good, man. OCO. Say that again. I got to work on saying that better.
You know, in Tulagi and the Cherokee, they say, oh, some dialect will say OCO, other ones just say seal.
Okay.
Seal.
Okay.
And it's just like, hello, how you doing? So
Awesome. And
how you
that's
doing?
what I'm great, brother. That's what I say when one particular Sasquatch clan in general I go see whenever I come into their territory. That is what I say. We have a system. It's really neat. I have a system of three. How do I say this? I do 3 wood knocks, pause, 3 wood knocks, pause, 3 wood knocks, and then I come in and I say OCL. All right.
OCO.
It was really,
Yeah.
it was really cool because where my oldest son is kind of a naysayer, he doesn't really believe in Bigfoot. And I always joke about this. He's like, Dad, you're getting older and you just want something to do. And you found Bigfoot. Well, my younger son, I took him out to this location and I approached the territory, their territory this way. I did my wood knocks, I did my OCO, and we're walking down the trail, and all of a sudden he hears the return set of wood knocks coming back from the Sasquatch, and we went in and we gifted, and yeah, so that was cool, man. But yeah, I love saying that, approaching them with respect, letting them know I'm coming into their territory. I'm not a threat, and by now they know me. They know what I smell like. They know what everything.
Yeah, they can smell you coming away a mile away. Thanks for having me on your show, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite. Good to be
thanks.
here.
Yeah, definitely, and thanks for your patience, Jerry. It's tough between the TV pilot series. Like this weekend, I take off to Ohio. We're going to interview Shawnee Indian Donna Copus, where she's had a connection. Her family has had a connection to one particular Sasquatch for upwards of 150 years. So
Wow.
a generational connection to a Sasquatch. So yeah, so thanks for your patience because I do get so busy sometimes, and I think we had to cancel the first time we scheduled for this podcast episode. And thank you for hanging around until we were able to reschedule.
Thank you. Things happen when they're supposed to.
Yeah. Oh, amen, brother. Amen. So let's jump right into it, Jerry. Man, our conversations have been wonderful, but this is for the folks at home. So why don't you go ahead and, yeah, and we're going to give and take as we go through this episode, but why don't you go ahead and lay a foundation for the folks at home about how you got involved in everything you're involved with?
Well, I've always been into these things. I've had when I was a kid, just a kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old, with my first UFO experience. Um, and I've always been into the other things and the spiritual side of things. And then my late partner was Native, and that's how I got into the community here in Michigan. And so I did some traditional dancing for quite a while. And that is where, with the Anishinaabe, I got to digress. Like the Anishinaabe, they're the principal tribes here in Michigan. They're the people from Michigan. Okay. So you got the Odawa, Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi. So they collectively they refer to themselves as Anishinaabe, which they're people. So my teachers have been primarily Anishinaabe elders, and it's been wonderful, beautiful, magical thing, and that's how I learned. That's how I first learned how to do home cleansing, and that's where my teachers. And that was from a Native perspective. And as these years gone by, got into more things, and it's kind of morphed into what it is what I do, And my wife she's the sensitive one, she can see them and hear them, and it makes my job a lot easier when we go into a house or a business or whatever is happening. So it makes my job a little easier in that we'll do a walkthrough, and she tells the people what she says what's happening, and I know what I got to deal with. So yeah, so it started, with that part of it. Started with the Anishinaabe, and I'm, she's had some health issues, so Creator, God knows, it's like Creator knows when we're able to do things. So the phone hasn't been ringing much because she's not able to go out with me. I've only done a couple cases in the last year, but between us,
Oh,
we've
wow.
probably done together we've done 100 cases easy.
Wow.
But
Can you give us an example of maybe one or two of your encounters and how it
oh
all
yeah,
goes down?
absolutely. Yes, we had a case right now. A case that sticks out of my mind, which is not the heaviest case we've done, but it was over by Allegan, Michigan. And a friend called, said, "Man, this lady over there, she really needs your help." And I talked to her, and she had moved into this house with um, her two sons. One's a young adult, and one's a kid. One's a little kid. I think he was, he wasn't very old. Might have been a toddler when they moved in. But anyway, they moved it into this place, and from day one, they moved into this house, and she was having issues. And in the house is a weird setup. Like above her bed, there's a window like in the ceiling, and these things were taunting her. She was seeing faces in the window, and they were having all kinds of different things going on in the house. And Brian, when we got there, this poor woman, she had the black circles around her eyes. Her face was drawn, and she was just a wreck. She was a nervous wreck. And so we went to the house, and one of the funny things is I don't care. We go into somebody's house. I don't care what the house looks like, right? That's not what we're there for. We're there to do what we do. So we're going to the house in the young man's room. I didn't pay much attention because it's a young man's room. It's kind of messy, right?
Sure.
And I didn't notice there's a bear rug on the floor. And when my wife Gola, when she came into that room, she saw the bear. She saw that bear spirit there, and she told me about it. I said, I didn't even see the rug because it was on the floor and had other stuff on top of it. So we dealt with that first. I told the lady of the house, it says, well, I don't know where this bear came from, but you have to take care of it. You have to have a feast for this bear, for the spirit. So hopefully they followed through on that. But anyway, we went in, we did the whole house, and we did the property. And she we and part of the process is usually I end up smudging and cleansing the people that are dealing with all stuff, because it's like, it's like PTSD for most people, right? It's
Sure.
like they want to be able to talk about it. This poor woman, she was a mess. It's been going on for years. She called a couple churches, and they think, oh, we don't do that, because generally churches don't teach that stuff anymore.
Right.
So her son came in. We got done. We went through the whole house. We cleansed the whole house. We talked to her about things that were happening, what was going on. And her son come up, like, about time we were finished. He says, Mom. She said, what'd you do? She says, what? She said, you look 10 years younger. And I'm serious, Brian. She had color back in her face. The black circles were gone. And she was just so calm, And that's just one case, man. That's just one thing that we did.
Hey,
And
can I ask
that's
you something?
absolutely.
You said, this is crazy. Did you say Allegan, Michigan?
Yeah. Yeah. It was over. It's near there. It wasn't right in town, but it was near there.
Okay. I have accounts of, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're called the Melonheads in Allegan, Michigan.
Yes. What's that from that mansion over there by Sawyer? Yeah, the Melonheads.
Yeah, it's something about the Melonheads were believed to be children who were born with hydrocephalus, which causes liquid around the brain and head enlargement. And of course, the legend grew from there. And it's from Allegan County, Michigan. And they had once been in the Junction Insane Asylum following World War II. It was believed that the medical researchers did cruel experiments on them. And then it was thought that the children escaped and then continued to inbreed as they grew. And so out of all of that backstory, there was a community of mutated human beings, so to speak, called the Melonheads. So, wow. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I've heard
It's
about
funny.
that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you said that, and I'm like, wait a minute, I just read something about that.
Yeah. Michigan is really, you could go spend a whole lifetime going to cool places and exploring things in Michigan, a whole lifetime, and you not get all of it, because it's quite a special place. And
Sure.
the Anishinaabe people have always known that. Of course, there was a lot of different tribes that come through here, trade. Some of our major roadways are old trails, right? They're old, originally here. So there was a lot of people that came through here, but the Anishinaabe are the one. This is their place. So
Yeah.
I have to respect that. So, but
What
yeah, that was just one. Go ahead.
no, and I'll let you do another one here in a little bit. What um what is, I guess, what's the backstory from the Anishinaabe tradition of Sasquatch, of Bigfoot? Now I'm trying to morph myself. I don't know. I can't remember if I told you that I had a mind speak encounter after my first couple of encounters with Sasquatch. They came to my house, I believe, banged on my camper. We had some communication back and forth, and then I heard mind speak. And what they said to me, I was gifting them. And so the first thing they said with this mind speak, I was walking from the back of my house back to where I put the garbage, and I heard in my head, and I spun around, Jerry, because I didn't
Yeah.
know if they were right there or what. But they said, and it was broken English, but it was funny because it sounded in the Native American style of speaking. It said, thanks for friendship, scout, and forest people. That's all that was said. Now, I knew that the thanks for friendship was thanks for gifting them and respecting them, okay?
Yep.
Number two, I had asked what their name was. They said Scout, or he said Scout, this particular, because it seemed to be more of a male. I didn't get a female feeling off of it. And then there was a correction there. And it was a polite correction. It was like, we would like to be referred to as forest people rather than Bigfoot. So throw me some of the tradition that you might know of the Native Americans' connection to Sasquatch, Sabe, forest people here in Michigan.
All right. And in the Nishnablan, the language, they refer to them as hairy man. And it's Bugs Janine, or in different dialect, Bugs Janae. I've heard it a couple different ways, but it relates to wild man or hairy man. And the tradition is that they are out there, and they're generally not harmful, and particularly for children. Like, say, if a kid's lost in the woods, hairy man's going to take care of him. They're going to look after him, be like a benefactor. And that's just particularly in the Michigan thing, And I think
Right.
there, as you do, we're coming to learn that there's different tribes, there's different clans of
Yes.
our forest neighbors, right? And
Yeah.
so, but he's not seen as they respect him. In my experience was during ceremony, and two of them showed up. Two of them showed up just outside the lodge, and the young man who was keeping the fire, he saw them, and at first he was so scared he wanted to run, but he was tending fire, can't leave the fire alone. But it was the same thing, it was like mind speak. He said they let me know it was okay. And Brian, I felt their footsteps, them big footsteps on the ground. It's like the ground was moving, and he said they had the red eyes as well, the glowing red eyes. They told him it's so. Don't worry, we're not going to hurt you. It's okay. They just came into where we were at because we were doing sacred ceremonies, right?
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was for that experience was some 30 plus years ago. And I've been on the Bigfoot thing ever since, because it stuck with me. So obviously, it's like you hear those footsteps, and this young Anishinaabe, he was like 18 at the time, and he was pale. Come on, he's Anishinaabe, and he was pale. I was like, "What's going on?" And his eyes were. He's like, "Well," he told us what happened, and we went into the longhouse, the big lodge, and told our elders and the people present what happened, and the elder says, yeah, they were just acknowledging what we were doing, because it was like a good thing, so
Fantastic. I think it's pretty simple. I mean, I do wonder if and when there was a falling out, what it was about. Now, of course, we can surmise that it number one would be guns. Especially men. We tend to react overboard and want to shoot everything. And then I would think they wouldn't want to contract any of our diseases. So yeah.
there's that. And when non-natives showed up, everything started changing. Everything changed. The landscape, everything changed. And it's like I tell people, like, you ever seen a Bigfoot? No. I says, I've never seen a Wolverine either. I know there's Wolverines, badgers out there. I've never seen them. You know what I'm saying?
So maybe, I mean, man, you might have hit a nail on the head there. If the Bigfoot or the forest people felt maybe betrayed, as some of the Native Americans kind of gave leniency to the white man. It's hard to say,
Yeah.
what really happened.
And the whole it's a complex issue with the Anishinaabe and the U.S. government. That's a whole nother show. So, but it's like territory. It's like I'll give you, for instance, in the stories in Ireland where the spirit people were there, and then all these other people started coming in. They did the different successions of invaders started coming to Ireland. The little people, the Shi, they went underground. So it's the little people in the Fae. They went underground, so you don't see them unless they want to. And that's my thing. Generally with hairy men, Bigfoot, you're not going to see unless he wants you to. But then again, they're kind of like us. They can be distracted picking apples or doing whatever, and then somebody, oh, whoa, look at that. But I think if you're driving down the road and he just casually walks in front of you, it's no mistake. You know, it's
Right.
like they've seen a million cars. They know what's going on. They're a lot more like us. They're not. I'm totally not down with their big gigantopithecus. They're an older species that we don't know. I think they're spiritual people. They're spiritual people,
I
and
agree.
that. Yep. And then in every native nation on Turtle Island, which is our continent, they have their stories. They have their stories. Man, I have a friend in Australia who has seen him. He's seen the Yowie down there. That's how we became acquainted.
Awesome. Do you see my new Yowie mascot?
You got a Yowie?
Well,
Right on.
he's yeah. I've got all my Bigfoot stuff, but I'll show you real quick, Jerry. So that is an authentic leather overlander Cracker Jack hat made in Australia. And so I
Right
painted
on.
this guy up. I got this from one of my Bigfoot eyewitnesses, Danny Skinner, who does all the wood carvings. And then I got this hat from Australia. But anyways, go
Right
ahead. I'm
on.
sorry. You got me all
Oh, that's
excited.
okay. I'm fond of accoutrement. It's like with respect to our Anishinaabe friends, um, you know, there's some things that we're not supposed to talk about. But I've talked to a couple of my elders, and it's like some of these stories need to be told, right? It's like the experience with uh, Bogstanin. Uh, that was just it's to me to this day it's still mind blowing. He's because there was nothing between us but a couple tarps, right, and then feet on the ground, you know.
Sure.
So I've been looking into the subject ever since then,
Fantastic.
and
Let Yeah, and we'll come back to that. I want to hear another ghost story because we don't get a lot of ghost stories on this show. So I want to hear if you can remember any of your other kind of crazy incidents.
I'll tell you one of the heaviest one. I think I talked to you about this one. The heaviest one we did was I got a call from one of my elders, and she said there's this native couple down at Ypsilanti, and they're having problems, in the house. So okay, and I said, so she put me in contact with the couple. She's Anishinaabe, she's Odawa,
Okay.
and her partner, he's Cherokee from North Carolina, from the Guala boundary, and
that's me.
yeah, and they're having these issues. Here's the backstory: she bought this house, right? Everything's cool. She bought a house, she bought her own house. She's so happy. They didn't tell her the backstory on the house. The backstory on the house was that the guy lived there with his wife, stepdaughter, and his own son. Son was about 8 or 9 at the time. He was a corrections officer. One day he snapped. It's stress, whatever. He snapped. He came home. He tied everybody up, and for a couple of days he's abusing his wife and the stepdaughter. This is pretty graphic stuff, so I apologize to anybody ahead of time. But anyway, this is going on for a couple of days, and the wife finally convinces him. Says, "Look, we got to eat. I got to, I'm gonna go to the store get food. And I won't tell anybody what's going on." So he conceded. He let her go, and of course she called the authorities, and so they came back to the house, tried to get him to, come on, come out, just let's do this away with this, And he was holding a gun to his 9-year-old kid's head. SWAT team took him out. So no one had told her about this. She must have got a great deal in the house. No one told her. So in any way, he was a really angry spirit, and he was still there, Brian.
Mm.
By the time we got there, like I mentioned, was native couple. By the time we got there, it's like they want us to go do our thing, but they just want us to use, our native methods, right? Okay. And so we're going through the house, and we're doing the thing. And at the time, I was using some sage because they didn't want me to use any other stuff. and my elder who set us up with it, she was with us, and she got pushed, and she still has a mark on her back to this day from where she got pushed.
Oh my.
Yeah, and it was pretty intense because I fire up some sage because I'm going to do the smudge on the place, and he's coming through the Gola, and Gola's going like, that smoke don't bother me. That smoke ain't going to bother me. And that is thing I've learned is that sage is good for personal things, personal cleansings, and maybe the real bad guys, it doesn't affect them as much.
All right,
So
all right. So now, remember I told you I had one question I was going to ask you.
yes,
This came to me a few days when I looked in the calendar and saw your episode was coming up. This question came to mind, and hopefully you can shed some light on it. The hierarchy. Is there a hierarchy when it comes to ghosts, when it comes to spirits? You said the real bad guys. So that tells me there's a hierarchy there. Elaborate on that.
well, we have to split that up because in the Christian tradition, they will tell you there are no ghosts. The demonologists can tell us that it's all demonic, but we know for a fact that this guy he did really bad stuff. He was a really bad spirit. That's why he was a real angry spirit, and so he was still there. Even though he was physically taken out, his spirit was still there. But on the other side, on the demonic side, we know that there's a hierarchy. But sometimes, you go into a house, you don't know what's happening. It's always different. You never know what's going to happen until you get there, till you open that door. And sometimes it's like, the auntie or the grandparents who are just there, and they're moving stuff around or whatever, and they're not really going to bother anybody. And plus, 9 times out of 10, they're protecting the family from some of these darker spirits, more than malevolent spirits.
Gotcha. See, now you're hitting a good point. Western Christianity leaves out or doesn't know so many details. And let me present it this way. I build cars for Ford Motor Company. I build engine components.
Yeah.
Christianity says you can liken Christianity of Western culture to an automobile. And them saying automobiles are real. And that's all the information you get from them. You don't get whether it's a GM or a Ford or a Chrysler or a Toyota or a Subaru. You don't get all the details. What color it is the interior leather, what engine size. We don't get all these details from what we're taught here in America, this Western civilization of type of Christianity. And so one thing I like about you is you have the broader, which I'm learning more and more about, the broader perspective about Christianity, about spirituality, about where all these entities come from, that there's so many different kinds of entities and spiritual beings. It's unsurmountable. I mean, like I always say, if you look up how many different types of insects there are, you'll find there's anywhere between 900,000 and 3 million different types of insects that we know of. So there are so many different types of, whether it be a Sasquatch, Sabe, whether it be Dogman, whether it be spirits or demons, there's all different kinds.
Great analogy for an auto worker to use the autos for. But there's a kind of a reason for that, because back in the 1800s, there was the Age of Enlightenment for Christians and Christian scholars and theologians, and they said, well, you know what? We're modern. We're modern Christians. We're modern men. We don't really believe in demons and all that stuff. So they stopped really teaching about that aspect of it, and so it wasn't part of the deal. So like I said, this one lady, she went to a couple churches and they weren't equipped to deal with it because they're not taught how to deal with that. Unless you go into that, you're studying demonology and that kind of thing, you're not going to learn about it. So they stopped really dealing with that on a real level. I mean,
Right.
okay, they might come over. You might get somebody to come over and bless your house, which is a good thing, but that's about it. You know, and when things get really bad, people. Brian, I've talked to so many people. Like I said earlier, it's like PTSD. They're so stressed, they don't know what to do, they don't know where to turn. And half of it is just being able to tell their story. You know,
Sure. Yeah,
yeah,
I found this out when I had first moved to Port Huron, Michigan. I moved into my brother owned a really old house across from the post office. And that's where I was first tackled by a cloaked dark entity. Now, this cloaked dark entity followed me from that house to when I built a new house.
yes,
And it hung around. One time it hit me in the chest. So twice now I've had physical interaction with this cloaked being. One time it hit me in the chest, and then what I believe an angel or another type light colored being tackled it and got it off me. Well, not until I had my two boys, and one of them would see this cloaked entity, one of my sons would, and then finally drew a picture and came to me and said, "Hey, this thing keeps showing up, and it's really scaring me." Did I guess you could say I was taken aback by it, but then almost kind of got used to it. But then when my son saw it, then I put into action and I anointed my doorways and I went through the whole house. I did it
absolutely.
with olive oil. I blessed the oil, and then I went through my whole house in the name of Jesus. And I did some major casting out. And not until I did that did I ever have complete separation from this being. So that was over a period of years that there was some kind of connection, and it followed me from place to place. And until I exerted my full authority, it didn't leave until I exerted my full authority.
When did you first have that? When did you first experience that entity? In Port
When I
Huron?
moved, yeah, Port Huron, Michigan.
So he was kind of attached to you and he was following you around and tormenting you and stuff. And see,
Exactly.
things like that, and sometimes spirits they mimic things, and they want to make themselves appear scarier than they actually are. So you did the right thing. I mean, you had to, when your father instinct kicked in, and you had to take care of, well, it's scaring my son, I got rid of this. That,
Yeah, the first instance, it shocked me so much. I'm like, "Hey, God, what was that? I'm supposed to be your Christian son. Well, so what's going on?" The very next night, this thing appeared again the same way in my bedroom, and then a circle of angels appeared, and they all tackled him.
to me,
But
that is
then,
the coolest thing. That's
yeah,
the
isn't
coolest
that
story
cool?
here, right? Yeah, yeah. Um,
But then I
but
still had a couple more encounters after that. So I'm like, wow, this must be one with a higher up in the hierarchy. This one must have more power. And until I got
well,
really serious, and so it was hanging around for about 5 years, I think.
that goes back to your question, because some entities are more powerful than others, and and they they draw their energy from different places. First off, they want us to be scared, and it's we have to deal with it accordingly. You know what I mean? Like I said, every case is different. I've been pretty lucky because we've run across a couple tough cases, but I've never had like to call in my exorcist friend, things like that. You know what I mean? And uh, one of your shows, I think, is it Jerry Millwood? He talked about that. He says not everything. God didn't explain everything to it. There's a lot of information out there, but there are certain mysteries that we don't have understand, and that made sense. That kind of resonated with me
Yeah,
because
and I
there's
just right, and that Bible verse just came to mind, except I think it's Matthew 17:21 where Jesus is talking about it, that this kind doesn't come out except by fasting and prayer. this type of demon.
Yeah. That's once again, that's another show. You know,
Right.
I've got a friend that's exorcist, ekbalist. He speaks things, into reality with prayer, and he gave me a bunch of books to read, and it's pretty heavy stuff. I started getting into it. I was like, it's not for everybody, right? So it's like he says, "Man, I could teach you." It's like, but I started to learn about it because of what I do. Because I go to these different places, and you never know what's behind the door. But that's you got to really want to do that. But that's the mindset of it's like it's either demonic or not. They want to tell us that there's no spirits, there's no ghosts, but in my experience, I learned otherwise. So I deal with things accordingly.
Sure. I did a. Go ahead.
Go ahead. The most important thing about all this, you got to keep a sense of humor, man. It's like you can't let this stuff wear us down.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head, brother. You can't let it consume you either.
I'll tell you what. I had a case. I think I told you about this. It was a friend of mine. His girlfriend had this little apartment in Lansing, and I'd already been there, done it. Just it was no big deal. I smudged her house. He says, "Man, she wants you to come back and do this again." And he said, "You ready for this?" He said, "It's a pretty heavy shit." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I thought, it's no big deal. I've been there before. It's no big deal. And he says, "I'm going to walk with you." So I got your back. So it was a small apartment with a little basement. And I went through and did the thing. And I said, "Okay, cool." I'll tell you what, Brian, I was exhausted for a week. There was things happening that, that I couldn't see. And, prior to that, when I was getting ready to do this, my late mother came through the goal and said, "Be careful." And to me, it was just, it wasn't that happy. But evidently it was, because it kicked my arse for like a week. I was raggedy.
Oh, I bet it drained you.
Yeah. And we've gone on, we generally don't. We work with a team. We work with Chips Paranormal. They're Paranormal Chips, Michigan. And we've done some investigations and stuff, but that's not really our thing, just to go to a place and they do the whole thing. They do cameras and recordings, they look for evidence, but they usually call us in when they need help with,
Cool.
bad stuff.
And I know, and one of the reasons I haven't asked you is out of respect for the Native American culture is we're not going to ask you how and what you do. I think that's disrespectful, and that I believe that also you need to keep private how you do these cleansings.
Yeah, certain things like, with social media and TV and everything, they think all you got to do is light some sage and, spread it around and say a couple prayers and everything's good. Whenever you go into you're directly putting yourself in danger, and whoever's around dealing with what is going on there, whatever entity, whatever energy, whatever spirit is there, and like I said, I will say, sage is good for say like you're not feeling good. Say you had an argument with your girlfriend. You burn some sage, you clear the air in the house. You open up a couple of windows and you let you clear the air, right? But when you got stuff that's really nasty, it's attacking people, it's harassing people, nonstop. And there's other stuff you got to do,
Sure.
So,
Hey,
like I said, my things morphed into, because 9 times out of 10, most people are at least consider themselves Christians. So these days I like people to take an active part in what's going on, because it's right as your place,
Oh, exactly.
So,
yeah, you can't hang around forever.
Yeah.
Hey, you mentioned at the age of 8 or 9 years old you had a UFO sighting or encounter. Tell us about that?
It was great. We were sitting around. It was my mom and one of my brothers, and we were sitting around and we were listening to the local radio station. This was like late '60s, and the local DJ, he's just freaking out. He's screaming over the radio that there's a UFO. There's a UFO and it's going over Albion right now. And we went out in the front yard, the three of us, and we just looked up, and there it was. It had a red light and a white light and it was creeping really slow, no sound at all. Yep, crept right over town. We just kind of sat there and looked in awe. It's like, yep, he's right. What was that? So that was the first time. Another time where it was between Albion, east of Albion, between Albion and Jackson, there's a little town called Parma, and between there on Michigan Avenue, there's like tower. It used to be Bell Phone Tower, right? And they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 towers there, and was coming back from. We're coming back to Albion, but we weren't on Michigan Avenue. We were about up the next road over, so we were about not quite a mile away. And I'm looking at these 3 towers, and there's just this big orange orb just sitting there. It's just sitting there, and I'm watching it. It's not moving because there's the 3 towers that are lit, and there's this orange ball sitting there, and I'm freaking out. Get home and call my friend Lee. He's been a drummer. He said, "Lee, man, there's this ball of light out there by the." He said, "Yeah, I've been watching it." So I got my dad's car, and we drove out there. There were cops everywhere. There were cops all over, sheriff's deputies all over. "What are you kids doing here?" I said, "Man, we saw this light here." "That was us. Get the hell out of here." And it wasn't them, obviously.
Oh, cover up.
Yeah. So that was the second. I've been into stuff since I was a kid. I mean, how could it not be, right?
Oh, for sure. I want to point out. So I'm looking up where Albion is right now. Hold on a second. So just east of you, a little ways, Highway 23, south of Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
In the 80s, huge Thunderbird sighting by a guy named Dominic Fortino. Have you ever? He said it was so huge, square wings, no doubt in his mind. He said it wasn't a pterodactyl, one of the biggest things he's ever seen. It was bigger. Him and 2 guys in a glider saw it, and this thing was bigger than the glider. Have you ever heard of any folklore, Indian folklore, about Thunderbirds?
Well, from what we know about Thunderbirds, they bring their wings are flapping, and they're bringing the weather. I don't know a lot about it, so I can't elaborate too much on it. But it's another one of those stories. There's so much out there that we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like different dimensional things. It's like you mentioned, people, they've seen pterodactyls, they've seen this and that. Today, I saw a huge bird. I don't know what it was. I just caught the back of it. It was as big as a crane, but I know it wasn't a crane. Sometimes those buzzards get pretty big, but I don't know what this one was. It was just a huge bird, and I actually went back around to see if I could see it, but he had already flown the coop.
Okay.
But,
yeah, I mean, I've got pterodactyl sightings going back to the 80s from the Muskegon, Benton Harbor area, and then you figure that Thunderbird sighting. So right there in southwestern Michigan, and I'll be out there in a few weeks, so maybe we can catch up with each other. Where you
yeah,
at
man,
now?
would love to hang out sometime.
Okay, cool. I'll keep you posted on that. That is
Albion
September.
Yeah, cool. Albion is like right in the center of southern Michigan. So right east of it, we border Jackson County, and that's considered it starts eastern Michigan, and we're like right at at the edge of western Michigan. So,
see, yeah, you have. Boy, there are a ton of Sasquatch sightings around there.
Michigan is just there's been I read a dogman sighting from not too far from here, over by Onondaga.
Oh, what was that?
It was this kid says this was a few years ago, and it was out one of the back roads. Onondaga was dirt road, and there's cornfields all around. And he's driving. His girlfriend lives out in the country, and he drops her off. He pulls out of the driveway, and he's heading. He looks in the rearview mirror, and he said, "Dogman is just standing there, on the dirt road, looking at it." And I've heard Dogman stories from over by Dwajak too.
Wow.
You know, there's all kinds of things in Michigan.
It's unbelievable.
I finally heard. Well, I was at a gathering a couple weeks ago. Had an Odawa elder he was talking about. It was a pretty casual gathering. We got together most just to hang out and have food and stuff. And he asked us, "What do you guys do?" He said, "You guys know what the Wendigo is?" And like, hey, we're even supposed to say that because that's been blown out of proportion too. But this is his story. This is what it is. He says Wendigo was a story that they used to tell their kids because back in the day, right? It's winter. It's a winter story. Wintertime, you're in the village. You don't want kids to stray out of the village, right? Because anything can happen. There's wild critters out there. There's snow. There's storms or whatever. So that's what they used to tell their kids. They talked about this Wendigo. So you don't go out. You don't leave the village, especially at night, because the Wendigo will get you. So there was no really mystical attachment to it. It's just like it's like a boogeyman story they told their kids to keep them from going out of the village.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I did not know. You said the she is another name for little people?
The she, it's spelled it's SHIH in Ireland and the Gaelic. It's she. That's what they call the banshee. Like the word banshee, that's where it comes from, banshee. Yeah, and that's their word for little people. And that's a lot of them take that stuff really seriously over there. Like if there's a sacred tree, if there's a fairy mound, if there's a fairy fort, that you don't mess with it, you go around it. They've actually detoured around sacred trees and sacred spots over there. So they want to disturb little people.
Have you heard my fairy encounter?
Yes. You could always share it again.
Okay. So I'm laying in my bed, thinking about everything I'm doing throughout the day. So my mind is racing. I'm not even close to being asleep. And I close my eyes. My father had passed away. I've taken over his house. I'm the only one in his house, renovating the whole joint. It's quiet. And I hear a feminine female voice say, "I've heard about you." I think to myself, I'm the only one in the house. Somebody must have come in. I open my eyes to find what I call a fairy. It had wings. It was hovering. Female features in her voice. And her head and face was closest to me. Like this. And she's looking at me. She's looking at me so intently, she hasn't really realized that I've opened my eyes and I'm now beholding her, or maybe she thought I couldn't see her.
She forgot to put on her...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. She forgot to put on her cloaking device.
Stop it. Because out of my mouth, not even planned, I say, I can see you, right? And that's weird, too, that it was almost like my spirit spoke it or something. It's weird. Like it wasn't, I didn't think about it. It just came out, I can see you, right?
Yeah.
And she's like this. And when I say that, she goes, "Oh," and zips across the room and flies into what I call the junction box. And I always say this, you can plug your DVD player in it, you can plug the internet into it, and then that goes to your TV. So it was just a meeting place where all the wires go into.
Yeah.
She flies into it with a pop, and sparks. So she went from the physical into electricity, interdimensional. I don't understand how all that stuff works off. Yeah.
Me either. And you had mentioned that you weren't even thinking about fairies at any point before that. It's like, it's not something you think about. And
Not on my radar. I got two
she could have
boys.
been a fairy. She could have been another, because other entities, they mimic things. They will show up. They're literally shapeshifters. They can show up to be this or that, and it could just be a different. I don't know either. It's a cool experience that you had. Something.
Yeah. Another guy said they can be mischievous too.
Absolutely. It ain't all like Tinkerbell, man. That's the dark witch. That's why you don't piss them off. That's why in Ireland they take really good care not to. They don't disturb their areas. I saw a video just the other day. It was in Ireland. It was in the north of Ireland, I think. And this guy, he's got all this fairy things on his property, and he takes people there for tours and tells them what's going on and stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool. But you definitely don't want to make them mad, because bad things can happen.
And two, there's a dynamic there. This thing I've heard about you. What did that mean? That was prior to me getting into this whole paranormal thing. Did she know the future?
It's like this. It's like you already had some experiences prior to that, right?
Oh yeah.
You've had experiences, with spirit and stuff. And when we start, and you're kind of, it's like, you describe it like it's a moth to a flame. The bugs fly around the light because they see your energy, and it's like, wow, and they want to check it out. Yep. And that's real.
I think that's it.
Yep.
I've been reading lately about people's aura and the energy field that they give off.
And you've been prior to this, you'd already been dealing with some spirits and dark entities and stuff. So she says she's heard about you. Who, could be the angelic side, could be the dark side. Somebody said to me once that, I had never really considered it before, is that the bad guys, the boogies, they have their protectors too. Because we want to think, well, good's going to, conquer evil. It's going to win. It's always going to win, right? But the bad guy, they have their way of doing things. And there's a lot of bad stuff out there. And
did you hear my story about how I turned down the so-called deal with the devil? I was involved in the music industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess there's a bigger connection than I ever realized,
Yes. So what happened with your deal there?
I told them no. I had a portal door open up in my living room, long story short. They wanted to barter a record deal with me because I was already working with people from RCA. I had Phil Collins as producer helping me out, do my demo. My engineer was Aretha Franklin's engineer. A guy by the name of Jim Lamonte who talked the Romantics. So I was kind of part of the whole Detroit scene.
Okay.
And I was writing a song for Bobby Brown and Billy Ray Cyrus at the time. Bobby Brown's comeback. And so I was starting to make the big time. And I'm laying on the couch, and this is what I would call a vision. It happened when I started to fall asleep. It was in that land between dreaming and being awake.
Yeah.
And the portal door opens. An entity walks in. Its hair was on fire. Puts an envelope on my chest. I open it. It's a record deal. I was like a couple of months away from signing. And then that ever-present bright light came in over on the left. And so I was like, my spirit had turned to the dark thing and then turned back or something. I could behold like two things at one time.
Yeah.
And once I realized it was the cliche deal with the devil, I said no. This thing first it handed the envelope, put it on my hand, and kissed me on the forehead right there. Freaked me out. Yeah, freaked me out. I can still feel it to this day when I put my finger there. So then once I realized, I said, "Oh, this is the cliche deal with the devil," and then I just said, "God, no matter what I think I know, if this is not of you, take it away." And that thing ran out. The portal door shut behind it, and yeah, a couple weeks later, my sponsors, RCA, had pulled out the money out of their production company. They said, "Hey, we got to get back on our feet. We'll give you a call when we get back on our feet." And then I just started going to church full time, and I drifted off into the sunset.
Well, you've been it's so they're attracted to you for uh any other like any of your family, sensitive people in your family, like your parents, grandparents, anybody, aunties, uncles.
Not at my level. And then I had a recent visit from a giant um, at my house that I don't talk about. So I'm sure the people at home are freaking out. But this was a dream, but it was one of those dreams that was realer than real life.
Yeah,
To where when I woke up afterwards, real life wasn't as real as this encounter. Now
I think
you're gonna like
yeah.
this one, but go ahead.
No, I think you told me about this, but please continue.
So in the dream, I thought I was awake, and there is a figure standing, or I should say, I meet at my bedroom window. And if you ever seen the movie Spawn with John Leguizamo, he plays this little troll demon creature. That's what this thing was. It had come up to my window, and Jerry would not give me eye contact. It would only kind of look at me from the side. It was afraid of me. And he said he wants to make a deal with you. And I said, "Who?" And he points over, and just outside of my property line, this thing did not want to come on my property. This giant, huge giant, very strong, Paul Bunyan type figure. Okay? And he wouldn't look at me either. And this liaison he had, this little demonic liaison, said he wants to make a deal with you. And he says, and he will give you the information or the knowledge you desire, but only if you give up your moose head. I said no, and immediately came out of the dream and was wide awake in my bedroom, like I'd never been sleeping.
There's a
At that
couple
point,
things.
I didn't know what moose head. I had to give up my moose head meant. I had to look that up, and that means authority. You know, the big grandeur of a moose's horns and its rack. And the interpretation I got out of it from what I looked up was authority. So this giant wanted me to give up my God-given authority in order to receive knowledge and make a deal with him. But go ahead, your turn.
No, that is right because you told me that story, and that with the little demon character, and they wouldn't look at you because you got you got your protection around you. They won't look at you. If you would have given up, if you said, "Okay, I'll yeah,"
Never.
that's like an anoint. You've been anointed in a way. You've been anointed, and to give up your authority, you would have everything would have been downhill from there.
Oh, I agree.
It's like in the demonic realm. They still have rules they have to follow. Like they can't.
Yes.
If they're in contact with a holy person, let's say for the Exorcist, he's got the authority. He's got the authority because they still have rules they have to go by. As bad as they are and as bad as they can be, they still have to pay, follow certain set of guidelines. So
right,
for you to give up,
yeah, I had just seen that movie Sinners, I think it is, and they made a point in that movie where the vampires had to be quote unquote invited in.
oh yeah, that's a big part of vampire lore. You can't, they just can't, but that is like really. That's textbook. These entities, who knows who they were? You know what I mean? and what they
Yeah.
had planned. What they had to, well, you're
Oh,
going
for
to
sure.
get all this stuff. They're liars. They're liars. They're shapeshifters. They could present to you just about any way they want. But this little troll guy, spooky guy, and a giant. Well, where does that come from? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Hey, well, listen,
So,
Jerry. Of course we're going to have you back, but we got to wrap it up now. And we'll talk in the green room. Stick around, okay? But
right
can anyone follow you on Facebook or anywhere if they need to contact you?
absolutely. Jerry Lew Patterson, and and my pictures of me with my Tully Esquire, and you just send me a friend request. They got questions, they need help, whatever. Give me a holler, because that's what I do. And when I tell
Awesome.
people, I'm not lying, I say, "What do you do?" I said, "I play guitar and fight the forces of evil." And they think I'm joking.
It's the truth, brother. It's the truth. All right, Jerry, I'm going
We
to put
all
you backstage. No, go ahead.
all right. Thanks. We all have we have a responsibility to spread that light around, right? We got to fight the darkness, however we do it. So absolutely.
Well
Thanks for
said,
having
my
me.
friend. Oh, definitely. I'm going to put you in the green room. I'll see you in a moment.
Okay, thanks.
All right, everybody. Jerry Lew Patterson. Look for him on Facebook. Friend him, messenger him. If you've got entities in your house and you need them out, you got some scary creatures, ghosts, whatever. Jerry's and his wife, they're the people who can get them out. So Jerry's a good friend, and actually, I can't wait to meet up with him in person. But everyone out there, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Bigfoots of America podcast show, and we will see you next time.